What is up, family? Dante from Above the Bridge here, letting you know that we're throwing our very first festival ever on August 2nd at the Fox Theater in Pomona. We got 13 bands and 2 stages for $30. Headlining, we got Ultra Q, we got Young Gatita, Slow Hollows, Nemo Lakes, Fat Evil Children, The Soaps, we got Bed, Chicano Mosh, Ridgeway, who am I forgetting? Lots more. Lots of bands, 13 of them to be exact. $30, August 2nd. Be there. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, I had a moment at this, I forgot where I was, but somebody had the same name as me, and someone called them by him, and I just straight up looked, because not a lot of people are named.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The same. And so I looked at my friend afterwards, and I said, nah, dude, like that, it almost felt kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
I was like, no one else.
Yeah, that's my name, bro. No one else can go by that.
Nah, there's no way, bro.
I've never felt like I always wondered what it was like growing up to be named like Mike or like Jack or like something like that. It's like a super common like male name or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I and like be the person in class where like, you know, you have like that's Jack D and Jack A or whatever.
Yeah, you gotta like give the abbreviation of the last name.
Yeah, because I only know like 3 other Dantes, and it's usually spelled with an O. Mine's spelled with an A.
D-A-N-T.
D-A-N-T. Yeah.
Oh, D-O-N-T-E.
Yeah.
Dante.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Italian Dantes and a lot of black Dantes, and usually like the A is the Italian spelling, and then usually like different people of like different black descents, I'll usually spell with like the O.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I knew like a couple of both, but outside of that, like I don't really know any. I think I can think of 3 off the top of my head, but yeah, dude.
Interesting. I'm in the middle of reading Dante's
Inferno. Really?
Yeah, dude.
How do you like it? Yeah. It's a lengthy read and like
lengthy,
dense.
It's dense.
Yeah.
It's really
super
not
dense.
that lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think all of it as a whole is the Divine Comedy.
Yeah.
They call it.
But they condense just that story, correct?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it's dense.
Yeah, I started it, like, I read the first, like, 20 pages, and, like, I was like, this is just wildly dense, and I wasn't, like, particularly interested in the subject matter. I was kind of just reading it because it's my name.
Yeah.
But I got that, I get that question, like, like, once every 2 weeks.
Did I try it? Yeah, it's difficult. It's, like, it's a different time. It's a different vernacular.
Mm-hmm. It's very, like, what do they call it, like, Old English? Like...
Yeah.
Are you a big reader? Do you read a lot of stuff?
I like to read.
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff are you into? Like, is there any specific genres, or you'll read whatever?
Not really. But when I do read, sometimes I'll read 2 or 3 books at a time.
Dude, I've never understood how people could do that. I can't do it.
So the only way that I can do it is if I split the genres up. Like,
okay.
Yeah, like maybe it'll be like Dante's Inferno, which is like really dense. I would probably read only 1 other book in addition to that one because it's so dense. But like there's like fantasy books, like a fiction book, you know what I mean? Like it's just if they're not the same, I can read them. Yeah,
I get that. You're kind of splitting up different parts of your headspace.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was thinking about this recently, bro. Like I was thinking about how much of like my just like social and political ideology, like the way I look at the world in general, comes from like reading. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, honestly, not enough. And I was realizing that I think when I consume, like, because I read a lot, but it's just like I was thinking about where like the way I look at the world comes from, and I feel like I read a good amount, but I think it's like way more informed by like the internet and things I see online. And I kind of realized how unhealthy that was, where I was like, I think when you engage in information in that way, it's so much more convoluted, and it's coming from so many different like proxies and like different like streams of information and stuff, and it's just a very different way of consuming information than reading. Whereas I feel like when I read, I'm more forced to think about it. It may be slightly less entertaining, but it's more informative, I feel like.
When you're consuming something from the internet, it almost feels like you're just ingesting this Frankenstein of information.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from all these different places.
Yeah.
When you read a book, you know who it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Usually 1 to 3 people. Like.
Yeah, and when you're reading in that way, you begin to understand. It's like getting past the first however many pages of a book and realizing, okay, now you've found how the author's trying to talk to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Their voice, their narrative, in how to portray the story to you, and then you can continue with that key, that legend, and read the book, right? And so in that same way, like when you're ingesting information, you get past however many that amount of time that you need to understand how they actually talk, and then you can consume at a really good level. I totally feel that. I think like there's something to be said about like getting through the first few chapters of a book and realizing how the author is like not only trying to transmit the information, but their writing style makes a massive difference. Huge.
One book that comes to mind here was The Alchemist, because when I read that, I began it because, you know, like it's a very famous book. I had never read it, but like you hear so much about like the philosophy that comes from that book and like the just all the lessons in that book, whatever, that when I picked it up, I expected it to be incredibly dense, and it's super consumable. Like it's a very easy read.
So simple.
Yeah. There's also been books that like I thought I would enjoy the subject matter, but I just didn't necessarily like resonate with the way the writer wrote the book, and I think that can make a big difference too. I mean, I think about that even with like conversational styles, right? Like, I mean, I've done so many of these now. There's been people who've like, I'm like, that person's really cool, but like it's way more difficult to have like a lengthy conversation with them, maybe simply because our conversational styles don't align, which is a very big thing that I've begun to think about recently in social settings, where it's like, is that conversation with that person bland because you're bland, or is it because your conversational styles just don't align in a way that makes sense, you know?
Yeah. There's this quote by George Orwell. I probably won't do it perfectly, but it's like his rules on communication and like delivering stories. And one that really stuck out to me is, don't use a big word when you don't need to. You know what I mean? Just keep it simple, and if you can convey it with a shorter word, use that shorter word.
100%.
And so I feel you when you say the conversation styles might not line up, because anytime I get into a conversation with people and they start to use like big words,
like overly complicated words,
and I'm like, I love that you know, I admire that you have expanded your vocabulary.
Sure.
It's archaic though.
It's
archaic, and then, you know, just talk to me normal. Just talk to me normal. You don't have to stretch your brain. Like, let's just talk simply about these things.
Damn, dude, I know exactly what you mean. You know? And I feel like the reason I understand what you're saying so much is because I used to be that person. I think like growing up, like just to be honest, like I think growing up I was pretty insecure about my intelligence, and I think the way that I would overcompensate for that was to just use like really like really obsolete words that were just like way overcomplicated for like no reason, because it made me feel smarter, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Which I think something as I've grown out of, and I've like addressed that insecurity. I think now I can identify it in other people a lot, where they just like they'll be talking about like one of the most baseline, like very easy to understand premises, but like they'll use like really, really complicated and big words and like conversational styles, almost just to like make themselves feel a bit better, I think. Dude, I mean, that's kind of a cool segue, and I mean, it's interesting too, because I feel like that exists a lot in the music world as well, in a very different way. I think it's interesting too, because your music, like your recorded music, I would say fits somewhere in like an R&B sphere. There's a lot of jazz involved within it, a lot of really cool different production techniques and stuff. But that's a world where I've seen that a lot, actually. Like kind of like the jazz world, or even the classical music world, or a lot of genres that are influenced by that world of music. I think very often some players within that world can tend to get in this place where they're playing more for the theory than they are like the purpose of the song and stuff, which is why I think your music's a really cool mix of both, because I think like a lot of your chord progressions and stuff are very like jazz oriented, very theoretical, but it's kind of translated into a pop lens in a really cool way. So I'd ask you, coming from that world, it seems like you have a very big community within it with the residencies and stuff you've been doing for years now. When you first began like curating that kind of world, what was it that you were looking for in some of the performers you were playing with there at those residency shows? Was it like just theoretical music skill, or was it like, you know, vibing with them as a person? How did you kind of select the people that were playing those residencies as you grew them in Sacramento and then in LA?
Yeah, I think it's I'm assuming we're talking about vibe with.
Yes.
Vibe with, yeah. Vibe with.
Do you call it a residency? Is that what you call it?
It is pretty much a residency. Yeah. That term for vibe with.
Yeah.
I never like connected the two.
Sure.
I just said, oh yeah, I vibe with everyone. I vibe with everyone.
It's yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it. It's so sick.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's you know, actually in the last maybe year, I've really began to feel the weight of what Vibe With actually is. One, being a residency, and then two, just kind of like the meaning of it all.
Sure.
And how it impacts people as a space, just a general space for people to be with each other, talk to each other, connect with each other, and share themselves with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Bring me back to the root of the question again.
Oh, you're good. Just selecting people that you were having on those bills, and like what was kind of your process for filtering through different performers.
Yeah. So when I created it, it was the meeting ground, right? I wanted it to be a meeting ground because I started it in Sacramento. Sacramento has a small scene, and as we had spoken previously before we started everything, there's a lot of talent in Sacramento.
Ton, yeah.
And so having this connection to the, I guess, the theoretical and scholarly approach to music, and also being in the thick of things downtown, midtown, and just being in these like really grassroots spaces of what it means to be an artist. Yeah. You kind of, well, for myself, I began to see like the vast chasm that was between like these music artists and these musicians. Sure. And so
that's a great point.
You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, you guys don't even know each other.
Yeah.
And you guys are just kind of like, you guys are all downtown, playing gigs downtown, and you don't know each other. You're just kind of passing by each other. And I've heard these music artists saying like, oh, dude, it'd be so sick to do stuff with a band, blah, 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 blah. Sure. I'm like, I could run that for you. You know what I mean? Like, I know a bunch of people because when I moved back to Sacramento from Sonoma, I was like just taking a bunch of gigs, and I was gigging with a bunch of musicians. I was gigging with a bunch of artists, you know, and having that position kind of like in the middle of those two things, I was like, dude, we need to find a way. And a mixer is cool. Sure. But like, you know, you can't really trust people to utilize mixers in that way. Yeah. And so it would be much better if instead of like bringing people to face one another, we bring people close and work towards a common goal. Yes. And that way we're working right next to each other, and we say like, you know, this is kind of sick. Right? Yeah. Two
things really popped in my head when you were just saying that. One, I think when you like, I think the word you said was like a vast chasm between like musicians and people with artist projects. I think, and I've thought about this a lot, I think part of the reason that exists is because I think for a lot of people, myself included, and I wouldn't want to speak for you, but I think a lot of musicians that are really adapt to building really strong communities feel this way. Music is therapy for a lot of people. And I think it's very true for a lot of players, a lot of like just musicians. Sometimes people like that who need more of that therapeutic approach to music, they use it as a big outlet. They've become more reserved people through like a whole series of things they've been through. I think that's a pretty common experience I've found amongst like a lot of players. And not to say that isn't the same for people with artist projects, but they're generally way more outgoing, like way more of a face. And I think that is weird because sometimes, I mean, I agree with you. Like I've heard so many just wildly talented players be like, I have nobody to play with. And it's always just like this thing in my head where I'm like, why? Like, you're so good. And it's interesting to kind of watch some like really talented instrumentalists really cling to folks with artist projects and then begin to find other connections through them, because generally I do find those people, you know, for better or for worse, are more reserved, whereas I do feel like some people with like more front-facing artist projects, I think less commonly they are reserved. And then the other thing that I was thinking about too when you were saying that was your point on the mixer. I think what's so cool about what you're doing and it being in the setting of a show is there is a common ground already. That's like my favorite thing about concerts, bro. And I mean, I've met so many of my best friends from like me and Mario met at a concert. Like I've met like so many of my best friends through shows. And the way that I feel about it is that like when you were there in that space with those people, you already automatically have common ground. You have somebody to talk about. There's something relatable. You both know at the very base, you know, like whatever, the very baseline level, you guys both love music, or at least this artist. And that's what's so cool about spaces like what you're doing with Vibe With, because it's like, I mean, it's very inspiring to me because all above the bridge is just community stuff. Like our whole goal is to grow the biggest tight-knit musical community that we possibly can. That's our express mission. So like seeing what you're doing is so sick. But when did that community around it really begin to form? Did you need to put a year of groundwork in before you felt like people began coming back, and Vibe With was a thing where like they were finding other folks to work with and stuff? And when that did happen, how did that feel?
When I started it, it needed only a few months for people to really catch on to it, because I think when people caught wind of it, they were like, I need that. I need that. And also it's really tight knit, like I said, in Sacramento. Really tight knit. People started to come, and then it started to break out into the music lovers, not just the artists and people who needed it, you know. So I was really blessed with that there. I will say though, when I started it, we had a year and it was just like this, dude. It was so good.
Everyone was just getting bigger.
Like I said, like things were boiling. Sacramento was boiling. It was like almost like a renaissance, music renaissance that never existed, and just things were happening. Everyone was kind of go like this. COVID hit. Everything went to shit. Everything had to stop. People tried, but you know, you just couldn't do very much. And from that point on, we underwent survival mode. And so we were just trying to figure out where we could go, where we could do this thing. So we were like off for like however long quarantine,
2 years or whatever,
a year or two. You know, the spot that we were at previously, which was perfect, closed.
Damn. What was the original spot?
It was a spot called High Water. Q and 19th, baby.
Hell yeah. That's like right in the thick of it.
High Water, right in the middle. Right by the railroad tracks. It was so tight. They had this tiny ass little stage in the corner. Like only 3 or 4 people could like set up on it, and everyone would just sit on the edge of the stage and just stand. Like it was just so tight, dude. It was so sick. But we lost that spot. We found another spot in some really close homies who like really took us up and you know wanted to do that for the community and understood what we were about. We did that for a few more years, and it was cool. But I don't think we ever really fully recovered from that.
That's hard.
And ever had the same kind of like tightness, you know. But you know, the people were the same. The people were the same, especially the core. And I think that was what was really cool, is like bringing people in to be a part of that. Because there's, you know, the format of it is the house band plays. And then after that, we open up, people join in on the jam, the mic gets passed around.
So it's just open jam after that?
Open jam session.
That's so cool, with accompaniments.
So it's open jam, people with the microphone, but also like musicians.
And
the music doesn't stop all night. Well, we try not to. So the music doesn't stop. Musicians will like hop on and off like in the middle of a song or like in the middle of a transition or something like that.
That's sick.
You guys have to come.
I would love to,
come
man.
See us. We're in Chinatown.
When's the next one?
Every last Sunday.
Oh, dude, I would love to come.
June 26th.
We're throwing a show on June 26th, but the next one I'll be at
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
We're also doing a Sunday residency right now, actually.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. Last Sundays of every month. We're at General Lee's in Chinatown.
Sick.
But yeah. So that being said, you know, we're doing that in Sacramento. I was going up and down to Sacramento every month to make that happen.
Damn.
And just biding my time until I felt truly ready to host it down here.
Sure.
Then we did. And we had some spots that were willing to take us in and let us do a few there, do a few elsewhere. Last year, up until this year, we weren't not public. We were public, but it was like invite only.
Gotcha.
Because
okay.
The spaces were so small. We didn't want to like overcrowd the space.
General Lee's is pretty big, right?
General Lee's is decent, but it's public, so like people can pull up. Like I don't feel bad for people pulling up and being like, I can't get in because there's too many people, which we haven't reached yet, but we will.
Yeah.
At the other space, it was like downtown at this music studio, and I was like, I would hate for people not to like turn people away because we don't have enough space. And they're stuck downtown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you said it was on Q and 19th?
That was in Sacramento.
In Sacramento, though? Yeah. That's like, I mean, that's the kind of area, too, where people are just walking by on the walk-in because there's so much foot traffic there, I feel like, if I'm thinking of the right area.
Almost.
K
Street is a good big walking.
Not too far from the stadium, right?
The stadium is downtown.
Okay, gotcha.
Q Street is like the cusp of midtown and downtown.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it's like it's all like everyone is just everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so sick, man.
Yeah.
To your point about like COVID really like making it difficult for those spaces to exist, I think, and this is kind of like a double-edged sword, I think. But I think one of the coolest but also most unfortunate things about community is that it's so fickle. It can like come and go in people's lives or just in general so quickly. Like one element can change and the whole rhythm of things can be okay. Sorry, go ahead, my bad.
No, you're good. Yes. And I completely feel that like community is built and made up of humans.
Yeah.
And humans are built and made of change.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, if one variable changes, it can make or break the space.
Totally. And
what I am very, very conscious of and working towards every month is making sure that we're not, we're creating the space. That's all good and well. That's always going to be there. But it's really important to build a culture.
Totally.
Because I think the culture will exist beyond the humans.
Bro, yeah.
And if we can build that and make that rock solid, it's undeniable.
Yes.
And people can come to that culture, take it in and pass it on. Like culture is passed on.
100%.
That's what it is. And if we can instill that in the humans who come into the space, that sacred space of vibe with, we're in good shape.
That's also, dude, I think that's such an important point. And I think one thing that's really like a really important aspect of that is that culture comes from the top down. And I think within every space and every community, culture always comes from the top down, which is why, I mean, like, I've certainly been a part of music scenes in my life that I've seen just be destroyed because, like, there are shitty people that are, like, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, like leaders at the top, or like, I don't know what you want to say, but, like, people who kind of, like, have a lot of influence in the space from the top down. If they don't implement a rock solid culture, everything below them dissipates because, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if this is, like, bad to say, but, like, hive mind is real. Like when people are part of like a big community, whether it's musical or non-musical, they tend to be, like, emblematic of the folks that started that community, or they tend to be emblematic of the folks that have the most influence within that community. So it's like if the culture from the top down, I mean, dude, think about, like, this is an interesting example, but think about, like, being at a show and the crowd is, like, kind of dry, not moving or whatever. All it takes is, like, one person to start going crazy, and then suddenly everybody feels comfortable. That is, like, in my opinion, like, such a good example of what it feels like to be in a musical community, because it's like if that culture is set from the top down, whether that's bad or good, it's going to be modeled.
You have to be fearless. If you're gonna trailblaze your way into something truly great, you have to be fearless. You have the leader or leaders have to be fearless, and that's what I have been doing differently with Vibe with Los Angeles versus Sacramento. In Sacramento, dude, all on my shoulders. All on my shoulders. I'm making everything happen, and I missed many opportunities to create that infrastructure so that I can be more rock solid and run without me. I just didn't. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so now it's very, very important for me to have conversations with the people who are the core.
Yeah.
Like that house band. Or the next circle out.
Yeah.
And then the next circle out. And the next circle out. And the next circle out.
Yeah.
Like all these conversations yield so many rewards because I'm just instilling like, yo, you understand what we're doing here, yeah?
Yeah.
You understand what we're doing here. You understand what we're doing here. You know, and it comes at different times. It comes at Vibe With. Sometimes I say like, let's go meet for coffee. Let's go get food, whatever. But I'll take those moments and just be like, you know what we're doing.
Yeah.
You feel it. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so strong in me. It's so strong in Max. It's so strong in Jay. It's so strong in that core that when new people walk in, it's like they feel that rush.
Yes.
Like that wind just blow through them and just be like, oh, this is different.
Like, I want to be a part of that.
This is different. Yeah. Like, and when you do step into the space, that ego gets checked at the door.
Yeah.
And you sit, you stand, and you watch, and it's like we're storytelling and you're listening, right? And that we're storytelling that culture into you, and yeah, dude, it's very special.
Yeah, it at a certain point, I think communities like that become almost hard to define because it's such like an abstract thing at certain points where it's like it's hard to put into words like what it feels like to be a member of something like that and like be within a community like that that's so vibrant. It's really hard to even like explain it. It's almost like a not physical thing at a certain point. It feels spiritual.
Yes.
And I think like I've been part of musical spaces in my life. I've had like the immense privilege to be within these spaces that it feels like magic. It feels like home. It feels like when you go to the same place for, you know, a show that's going to be different every single night or once a week or once a month or whatever, it just feels familiar in like a really special way musically, because I think like as amazing as concerts can be, sometimes they can be a little intimidating for people who are more timid. I think like it's certainly an environment that a lot of people who are more timid can find a lot of solace in, because I think they're like, I don't know, there's kind of like different rules at concerts, which I think is something that benefits a lot of people. But at the same time, I think like some newer spaces can feel timid, and you know, when you have a room with 100 people in it and they're all like arms crossed against the wall, it doesn't exactly feel like the most welcoming environment for somebody who might be a bit more anxious or a bit more timid. So curating that, I would imagine, is like a main intention and really big.
Yeah. Have you ever been to like a show outside of Los Angeles where people like, have you witnessed the difference between shows and gatherings in Los Angeles versus literally anywhere else?
Yes, 100%.
I don't know what it is. Nobody dances here.
Oh, dude, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked about this.
I'm just like, dude, what? Like, tap your foot or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let
like,
me know you're
some
there.
Joy, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, when people come into the space, and I actually haven't thought about this in general, but as soon as they enter the space, bro, people like, we break them down.
Yeah, it's huge.
We're just chipping away at them, like, and it, you know, it takes longer for different people, but I am really like, I'm pretty floored with the, you know, people walk in, they get broken down, and they leave like just open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And you can definitely like watch those walls be broken down step by step. Like you can see somebody going from like, you know, they're just, you know, arms crossed against the wall, whatever, to nodding their head, to maybe dancing a bit more, to getting excited. Like you can kind of see the steps of evolution as people begin to get more comfortable.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as somebody just saying, yo, tonight was sick.
Yeah.
Because people also don't talk out here.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean? People are really to themselves. People are, for whatever reason, afraid to say, yo, what's up? I know you from Instagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead, they'll just like stand there the whole night and just kind of like side-eye you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just say hi.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's such a different social culture here than there is in most cities that like people almost and I mean I get this to a degree. Like I think when I moved here, sometimes it gets more intimidating to go up to people because like there is a massive surplus of that in Los Angeles. like people going up to people and be like, oh hi, how are you, like I know you from Instagram, or like you know, like I saw this you did or whatever. There is a something I talk about a lot is I think to work in music, the best people who work in music are always unapologetically fans. They are fans like through and through, which I think is so sick. And I think something that I hate that I experienced a lot when I moved here first, that people don't want to fucking admit they're a fan, dude. Like nobody wants to be like, yo, like I really rock with like what you're doing. Like I think it's really cool. I like it for these reasons. Like, and I think the reason that is because you're kind of diminishing and giving into a bit of a power dynamic when you do that. Like I suppose if I go up to you right now and I'm like, I'm a fan of you, there is then just this level of implicit power you may or may not hold over me. And I think there's so much ego in LA that people have a hard time dismissing that power.
Yeah. People just afraid.
Yeah.
And people, man, most people are just softies.
Yeah.
Just be a softie, yo. I know you have to not be, you have to be hard sometimes.
Sure.
You know? Most times, maybe. The state of the world, gotta be hard. Gotta be hard in the streets and not a vibe with, you know? Not a vibe with. That's your place to, decompress and take a load
and
off.
Like be vulnerable. Yeah
And we invite you to be vulnerable among others, you know, because when you are around people, like you want to harden up.
Yeah, dude, I mean I feel that difference you're talking about even in like LA to Bay Area concerts. It's incredibly different. I don't know, I just think people are, I think one thing it is too, dude, is that like I said, there's such a massive surplus of stuff down here that people begin to take it for granted sometimes, which I think I do for sure.
So spoiled.
Yeah, so we're so spoiled to live in LA, man. I mean, like I non-ironically, I went to 5 shows this week. Like I went, like last night was the 5th show that I went to this week, and like that just feels like relatively normal. Whereas when I was in the Bay, there was, if I was lucky, one really good show a week that I was like, oh, I'm going there on Saturday. If that, maybe a month, you know? So it felt way more special. It felt like something that I had to look forward to and hold on to and be excited about. It's a little bit less like that in LA. Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like, so you were talking a bit about that kind of community you had in Sacramento in 2016 area. Prior to that, did you have a lot of musical community? Were you making musical connections when you were at school in Sonoma? And how did you kind of begin? Like, were you in Sacramento as a kid making music? Did you only really begin to put yourself out there post-college? What was that process kind of for you to like kind of establishing your roots in Sacramento? Because you played there a ton and I guess still do.
Yeah. I'm tickled just to even, I think about it, you know, sometimes it's just like fun to like talk to people who don't necessarily know me as much, because I'll talk about this with people that I know, and you know, I'll tell them the same story that I'll give you. I don't know why right now I'm more tickled than normally.
It's fun, dude.
But I my mom was in choir. Catholic church. And, you know, it's like really slow shit. Some of they got bangers over there.
There's some crazy players in the church, dude.
Catholic bangers.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm actually going to church today for the first time in like 8 years.
Whoa, dude.
I'm not really a religious person, but my friend Andrew, who manages Josh, he was like, want to go to church on Sunday? And I was like, yeah, sure.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, so sweet. He's a sweetie. He is like, when you say softy, that is Andrew Bouillard.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We need a lot more people like them. So I at Sonoma State, I don't know, I really fucked around a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I could have been doing more, as anyone would really say, you know. I could have been doing more. I wish Sonoma had this disconnect, like
more coffee on some diner shit, bro. Oh, that's crazy. That was like,
where the fuck did you pull that?
That was like my server instinct just kicked in there for a second. Sorry, continue. I fully just cut you off. That was literally like my diner server instincts kicking in for a second.
Big ass pot of coffee. Let me take a sip of this for it.
But yeah, Catholic church, mom was in choir.
Catholic church, mom was in choir. You know, grew up around that. Growing up, there was the big thing, YouTube. Yeah, YouTube was golden era, dude. And there were,
that's the era I grew up in.
Yeah, man. And like, you grew up in the Bay, like there were a lot of like Filipinos,
totally,
and Asians on YouTube, like doing covers,
100%,
and like that is a genre of itself. The covers, but also like when they started making original songs, and it's like all this cute shit,
especially in the Bay, but South Bay at that time, dude, like
God,
Dana Maar,
dude.
Chow Mein, that whole era,
dude, like that was the stuff that was kind of in my circle, that, you know, because I wasn't really allowed to listen to like radio too much and like rap and hip hop and stuff. So it was that's like mostly what I consumed and what I tried to imitate. You know, in middle school, high school, and it wasn't until sophomore year of high school. Sophomore year of high school, I played an open mic. And before then, I was like, I wasn't really doing too much. I was just trying to put covers up on YouTube. Terrible.
And you said this was sophomore year of high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not even trying to guess the year. 2009.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe. Because I graduated 12. Played that open mic. Up until this point, I'm a nerd. I'm not really seen. Not really popular at all. But as soon as I start singing, I'm recognized. I'm seen. And you know, and that's just like how I was brought up and how I grew up. I grew up like very like closed and introverted, and I still am, but just shy, and so like not being outgoing, you know, not being able to break through like to people because I wasn't as outgoing. And you know, as soon as that happened, I didn't need to be outgoing to be seen. And I was
that's like, a great point.
I want that. I want to do that. That's what I want right there. And so I that was kind of like my breakthrough moment as like a coming of age moment for me, you know. And that's when I decided I wanted to do music. Didn't necessarily know like which direction I wanted until I came across this dude named Jamie Cullum. He's from the UK, and he's a jazz pop artist, and he kind of just used jazz to his freaking will, you know, and just like popularized it and used it any way that he wanted. And he really inspired me to go after keys so that I can understand like what I was playing underneath the voice that I you know, in a very raw and unrefined way, the voice that I had at the time, you know. And so like being able to support myself would be the best decision that I had ever made in life. And so I went to Sonoma State for music, for jazz studies and piano, and you know, fucked around and, you know, could have done more, could have learned more, could have been a part of more communities, but you know, like I said, there's like this big distance between Sonoma and any community anywhere. I mean, the closest would be what, like Napa area, I guess. But like, well, I mean, if you want to call Napa, it's not really a community. If there's a music scene that you would want to reach out to, or that was, you know, enough of something, I guess it'd be the Bay. And that's not even really close. And so, you know, I could have made that hour and 15 trip. But I wasn't connected in that way, so I didn't. And I think I realized that as I finished school, and I was like, I just need to do and play and meet. And so I said yes to everything when I went back to Sacramento in 2016. You know, and then, you know, you quickly learn, because you're taking on so much, you quickly learn like, oh, I need to say no to something. You know? I mean, I say that all the time, though. Like, say yes to everything is, I think, very, very good advice for people who are first beginning in this. I mean, like, man, when I first started, like, I'd interview any person that I could talk to that made music. I didn't even really care if I loved their music or not. It was more so just about their stories. So it was like I was literally saying yes to anything, bro. And if they were like, oh, like, pull up this music video after and help shoot, I was like, okay. I was like, come to the show. Okay. Like, I just went to absolutely everything. And I think why that's so important is, like, when you go from like having no musical community to having a lot,
that process is informed by just saying yes. Like, I just think you need to say yes because things end up unfolding in ways that you never would have known. Like, even if the experience that you say yes to is not necessarily like a really ultra positive experience, it still teaches you a lesson. Teaches you what you don't want to do, what you prefer, or the direction you think you can go is entirely informed by just doing it. So you just have to do it. Like I think for a long time, you got to just say yes to everything. I mean, there's been opportunities that I've gotten more recently that I never could have dreamed of, but it's just because I said yes to shit that didn't, seemingly matter in the moment, but it ended up mattering a ton further down the line. So I just think it's so important to be there. Like, you just have to show up.
Yeah.
Like, just say yes to things, be in those spaces, be around people, and things will divulge and the dots will begin to connect themselves eventually. You just have to keep saying yes and figuring it out until you have the privilege to be able to say no to stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. And on the subject of saying yes to things, dude, I mean, I didn't really have a second thought about coming here to do this.
Sure, yeah.
But most people, when they ask to interview you, they don't really do the research.
Yeah.
So, bro, I appreciate you doing the research, bro.
Of course,
doing the research and wanting to speak on things.
Have you had bad experiences?
Yeah, dude. Totally. Yeah.
Most artists have.
Yeah, and
you get the who are your creative influences question.
Oh my god, dude!
Dude. What artists are you rocking with right now? Yeah.
How would you explain your sound?
Yeah, yeah. I hate that shit.
Oh my!
I hate that shit, man. I've been doing this for I've been interviewing for 4.5, almost 5 years. This is the 187th one we've ever done. Wow. So we've done a lot, and I've definitely thank you. Like, I've definitely learned more about my process over the years, but I've always really wanted to be conversational, dude. And we don't cut anything out of these. I really dislike interrupting the flow of natural conversation, for better or for worse. Sometimes, like I said, you referenced that George Orwell quote. I think that's very true. I think that sometimes if people's conversational styles don't align, you have to figure out what makes them excited. Yeah. That might be what I think I'm most proud of being able to do, is I can really identify when folks get excited, and I think I tend to really stay on those things.
Yeah, totally.
And try to kind of meander my way through the conversation that way. But I appreciate that. Every single artist that I interview, I listen to almost all their music before.
Yeah.
Or at least, if I can't get through all of it, I listen to almost all of it.
Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Of course, man.
Thank you so much.
And it's I'll live with the music for a couple of days before I write the questions. Like I wrote down the questions for this interview this morning, but I already knew what I was going to ask because I've been listening for the past couple of days.
Yeah.
So it's just all the process has informed itself through bad interviews, I think, too. I've had some really shitty ones in the early days where I was like, oh, how do I circumvent that happening again?
It's just reps. Reps.
Everything is.
187?
Yeah.
Reps. Dude.
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, it's the privilege of a lifetime to get to have these conversations. I'm very lucky.
You're really great at it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it, dude.
Course,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You said and this stuck with me and I wrote it down. You said I
love that you're writing it down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
you got
I don't know if you can see the table in the camera.
Yeah,
probably,
you can.
But yeah, you're just writing it straight onto the table.
Yeah, this whole table is just tagged up with notes.
I fucking love it.
Thank you, man. But you said when you had that performance experience when you're sophomore year of high school, you began not having to be outgoing to be seen. That I think, on the contrary, is something that I've seen within a lot of folks, where they don't feel seen, so they might not be necessarily outgoing, but they're just a lot, and they feel like they have to overcompensate in a lot of these spaces because they don't feel seen. I think it's easy to identify that in people very quickly. So it makes a lot of sense to me when you say that, when you began performing, you were learning how to be seen without being outgoing. Because I think that's one thing that's so special about live music, dude. I'm sure you understand this with the stuff you've done with Vibe With and just playing around so much because you've played so many damn shows. What's so cool about live music to me is that those experiences that you have in that specific room, they live in that day, in that room, with those people forever, and in nobody else's mind. No. And that is something I don't think the internet can ever replicate. So I was talking about Aft earlier. I think he's somebody I see this in a lot as well. And I think you guys have a lot of parallels in that manner, both from Northern California, both very, very active in the live scene. When you began playing more and more live, did it change the way that you thought about some of the marketing you do on the internet? Because I know you're super active there as well, always posting reels and stuff, and just like making sure you're on top of the social media game or whatever. But when you began performing more, did it inform how you wanted to move online in any way?
Totally. You know, when people move online, it's usually like very curated.
Yeah.
People are posting like, you know, the things that they deem as content, and it's usually like people lip singing to their song.
Yeah.
It's a visual, right? And they're trying to create that something enticing for people to latch onto, so that whatever. That's their that's their formula for content. But my strong suit as an artist is when people come and see me live. You know, it might not be, you know, the visuals that you see, although the visuals are really cool. But bro, when I get you in a room with you and I get to connect with you in that way, with the only way that I really, really, truly have command over being outgoing with, which is my voice and my performance. That's where I thrive.
It cuts through the bullshit really fast.
Yeah.
Like, it's raw, it's real, and it's in front of your face, and you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I mean, I say this a lot, but, like, if we were on TikTok, we'd swipe past the Mona Lisa, bro. It's like our filter for bullshit is so high. Like, I always think about when you're next time you're scrolling on TikTok or Reels or whatever, think about or try to take note of how long it takes you to identify something as an ad. Because I swear to God, it happens in like so a millisecond, dude. Dude, less than a second.
I'm the best at it.
Yeah. You're like gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in real life, you can't do that. You have to sit there and let things burn and let things simmer and let things impact people.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's immediate, but it's immediate in a way that's like, well, I guess it's not immediate really, but it's in a way that kind of you have to sit with and you have to think about. It's undeniable, which I think is something that the internet is so deniable. Like, you can just dismiss anything you see on there. It's like we can just like scroll and find something better the next moment. You can't do that at a show, which I think is something that's actually like I mean, me and Mario were at this show last night in Pomona, and this band had like a 15-minute encore, and I was thinking about this after, where I was like, they didn't have to do that, but it's really sick that they just did. Because it's like everybody sat there and it burnt, and you know, you let it simmer and you live with it, and it's special. Something so special about live music.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, yes, I agree. And being able to take those moments and capture them, because that, you know, a lot of people, they build their shows and they fucking stick to it. They stick to it, which is great. That's how people work sometimes, and to create something truly great, sometimes that's how they work. For me, sometimes it comes like that, like
that's the jazz in you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like still having that lane of like, hey man, we're gonna build this show, we have the standard operating procedure of how the show is supposed to go. Anything can happen though. Anything can happen. The songs could take a different way. We don't know. We just don't know. And you know, being able to, you know, we can let those live in the space, but like also you know, because that is my strong suit, I want people to have that. So if I can capture that and give that to the people, yo, this is what happens to the show, come to the fucking next one. You know what I mean?
Dude, that to me is what's so cool about jazz music though, is that it's so based in improvisation that like it's even more unique every time. Like, you know, a very competent jazz drummer, they're not playing the same fill every time. Like, they just aren't, because their hands and their bodies and their minds just know how to do multiple different things. Like, and you know, the same goes for like a keys player or whatever. But like, it's so specific. It's so different every single time, and I think that's what's so special about jazz music. And honestly, like, there isn't a genre that's as improvisational as jazz, so I think a lot of genres miss out on that level of experimentation in the live world. Like, and when you talk about vulnerability, that I think is like the epitome of jazz music to me, because like when you're improvising, you can fuck up. Like, you are genuinely very vulnerable when you're in that jam stage. It's not a rehearsed performance with tracks where you know exactly what song's coming next. You know, like, you're never gonna play that bridge an extra 4. You're never gonna like change the fill. You're never gonna like go to a different chord that maybe you wouldn't normally. That doesn't exist in most genres. A lot of genres are just incredibly just like it's like you said, similar every time. There's, you know, not to knock that, but there's something so special about a live jazz performance being different every single time. That's so cool, you know? Yeah, it's the best.
Jazz, dude. Jazz.
Circling back, because you mentioned and you noted that like when you first moved down here, you weren't necessarily like nervous for it. You kind of just made the jump. Talk about that experience a little bit. What was the hardest part about coming down here when you had such firm roots in the Sacramento scene? Did you see any parallels between the two scenes, or was there stuff you had to get used to a lot? And what were the biggest roadblocks that you had to kind of break through when you first got here? Because you said you've been here 4 years now?
About 4. Yeah.
Nice.
I am truly blessed because, you know, and this is something that I've always felt that I was blessed, but, you know, just these days I've really been able to reflect on it, but I've only ever been helped.
Sure, yeah.
And yeah, like that's just something that has always been. And
just by your community?
Whoever.
Yeah.
You know? By my community, being able to feel like fortified in myself and move in spaces unmovingly.
Yeah.
And just being able to be true to myself. I was very lucky to move down with like very, very, very close good friends. And that's the space that we moved into where I still live today, and I'm the last of the originals. So yeah, and the communities that I fell into, and I say they're communities that I fell into because they had already existed, but it's like I had these people that I was close to here and there, and they had their communities, and I was just, because I trust them, I could trust their communities.
Sure.
And so, you know, it's like the road was already laid out for me. You know?
Yeah. I would bet that there's an element of that for you that came from putting so much in. I think in the same light that I was talking about communities being fickle, I think there's a real level of reciprocation within communities. I think the more you put in, the more you get out. I think like if you've contributed a lot to a musical community and you end up in spaces that are involved with that community, the way that people treat you, and you know, maybe this is for better or for worse, honestly, but I think a lot of the times the way that people treat you is dictated by how much you've put in, because I think a lot of folks realize how sacred these communities are, and I think like when they see people actively trying to contribute to them, they look at them in a different light, a more positive light sometimes, one with less barriers off the rip, you know, which I think is something that like, I mean, I certainly experienced as as I've begun throwing more shows in specific scenes. I think the way that like I'm treated within those scenes has changed, and it's been really cool to watch. I think people really appreciate it when you put things in. So I would bet that when you first moved down here and you kind of started falling into these groups of good people, that probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's just you have to move authentically. Yeah. And true to the goodness of your heart, dude. And the people will find you, and you will find the people. And when I moved down, those people, those spaces and the people, we gravitated to each other. Yeah. And things fell into place, and a lot of them, you know, I know a lot of people move here with
nobody
goodwills,
and
dreams. But you gotta have a plan, man. And you know, I to some degree I did have a plan. I knew what I was here for, and I knew who I was, and I think that was the most plan that I needed. Moving down, because if you don't have a grip on that, you can just be influenced left and right. And and when I moved down, I just slowly started to realize, I was like, Los Angeles is the same. It's the same. It's just bigger. Everything that's in Sacramento is in Los Angeles, and there's just more of it.
100%.
There's just more of it.
It's like everything's pushed to the 10.
Yeah.
circling back, like you mentioned that like by nature you're a more reserved person, that like it was hard for you to put yourself out there when you first began doing this. But by the time you'd moved to LA, do you feel like you'd gotten better at like reaching out to folks, you know, trying to like extend a hand and like really go out of your way to like meet more people? And if so, how did you get from that place where you were when you were in your sophomore year of high school, where that was a bit more reserved and, you know, difficulty going out of your way to meet people, to moving to LA and growing such like a vast community with vibe with, and just like obviously it seems like you have like a lot of people around you, a lot of good people. Did it take you a long time to build that, and were there any lessons along the way that allowed you to learn to be more outgoing?
Yeah, I think when I moved here, I was, you know, it wasn't just because of the move. I think it was just an era of time where I was like really like just pinpointing on like what was worth it to me. And you know, picking and choosing my battles and when to step out and when to not, because also it was COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, being very mindful of that. And I had, at the time of moving, I really fell in love with boxing.
Cool.
And boxing is a individual sport. You know, it's very lonely. Yeah. It's very lonely, but
you're in the ring alone.
Yeah, but I love it. You know, like that's like I said, it's something that it's just, I love just being with myself. And so like being able to work out with myself and like push myself in that in that space is really, really great. And so when I moved here, bruh, I was in the gym every day.
Sick.
I was in the gym every day, and I loved doing that. Yeah. And so like after doing that, you know, stepping out was like, I don't know if I want to step out, you know?
Yeah.
But I think in general, if I were to really think about it and reflect on it, I definitely was a lot better already moving out here. Just because I had spent 4 or 5 years in Sacramento just learning how to speak to people, move with people, create things with people. Just practicing on a smaller scale in Sacramento, because like we said, everything that was in Sacramento is also out here, just in a bigger scale. And so taking that small scale and learning to fine tune it into something that could be bigger was definitely that was definitely something that I had been working on. And it took some time, you know, just like any transition. Most people, when you move to Los Angeles or I guess to another city, like you have to move through that like 1 year of depression or some shit like that.
Lonesomeness.
The lonesomeness and the change, and you're just kind of like trying to trudge along and stuff. And then it's not until that year is up that things really start moving.
Yeah, I think you kind of realize you have a community when you don't have enough time in the day to hang out with everybody you want to hang out with or go to everything. That was when like I began to realize like, oh, I've met a lot of people down here. Yeah. Because when you first move here, like, you're not really getting invited to shit. You don't know as many people, whatever. I mean, I was lucky too. I moved down here with a bunch of people from the Bay Area that like, you know, like I had a built-in community in my house, which I was very lucky to have, and they had friends here, and like I knew people prior here, so I was lucky in the same way. But dude, that boxing thing's very interesting. I've never practiced any martial arts, but I would love to get into it at some point. But there's some really cool like almost like imagery in boxing. Like it kind of is like a like a David and Goliath thing in a way. Like it's kind of like you with your competitor there by yourselves in the ring, you're staring your problems in the face. It's kind of some metaphor there in a way.
When you get in the ring in any martial art, it's like it's really 3 people in there. It's you, your opponent,
and the ref. But
it's you, the opponent, and yourself, like your shadow self.
It's like your consciousness and then your physical body.
Yeah, dog, because those become separate as you begin to train, and you start to realize like, whoa, like my body is different from this being that is in it. Yeah. Because we're fighting. You know, in training you realize like, oh, it's like your mental is really
fighting yourself.
Yeah, like your ego is you're fighting your ego pretty much. Dude, you gotta come I train down that way too, We should do some.
Dude, I would love to.
Paths. Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. How does it work? Do you have to like belong to the class, or can you just show up?
No. So I operate out of gyms that have just like gym access.
And
I have a few clients that I coach and train and stuff, and just use the space.
Dude, let me know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I would love to. That'd be super fun.
Yeah, dude, that'd be sick.
BASI, last thing I think I wanted to ask you. First off, like, I really enjoyed this. I think your intentions are very clear as an artist. That's something I really respect and look up to. And I think it's really cool, the community you've curated with Vibe with, and just everything you've done. And it seems like you're moving very genuinely, which is something I appreciate a lot. But I suppose I'd ask you, like, musically, but also just as like a public facing figure, because you're a curator, you're doing a lot of stuff. If there's one thing that people could get from your music or your shows or whatever you're putting into the world, one message, one thing you would hope that people would take away or learn, what do you think that thing would be?
Authenticity. I think that is, there's everything in the world is pushing us to not be so.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah,
everything is pushing us, pulling us this way, that way. But like I said, like, everything, I've only ever been helped. And I have to chalk a lot of that up to just being myself.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. That everything around us is pushing us to be unauthentic.
This way and that way, dude.
It's actually far easier to be unauthentic than it is to be authentic.
Yeah, dude, you can let it. Yeah. You can let it. The waves take you.
Yeah.
And sometimes in certain spaces and in certain whatever, that's the way to go, right? That's how to be zen with it all.
Yeah.
Is to go with the flow. But I think where that only works if you have a strong grip on who you really are.
Yeah.
So when I play these shows online, whatever you're getting from me in these spaces, Vibe with.
Yeah.
I want you to witness me being as authentic as I can be.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't look pretty.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, and that's the vulnerability of being an artist, right? It's
sure.
Like, you share yourself no matter how refined it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, people don't like to put themselves out there unless it's perfect. That's a perfectionist, but it's also like, bro, like, we don't want to see you be perfect. We want to see you be great.
Share the flaws.
Share the fucking flaws.
It makes you a human being.
Yes.
It's like the only thing that makes us good, especially, bro, in this age where, like, we're putting the most refined version of ourselves out online every single day.
Yeah.
People will really resonate with you allowing them in. Like, people will really resonate with you showing them the authenticity, showing them the struggles, the hard parts. Like, you don't have to put this perfect image of yourself out on social media or online or whatever, but just, like, move in the same way that you'd move with family members, vulnerably,
Exactly. Yeah. And, like, I don't feel... I feel my most vulnerable when I play at Vibe with.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for years, dude. For years. And... this age of Vibe with right now, where we're building the culture, right? I'm trying to be as fearless as possible to trailblaze for all my people. You know what I mean? And I want people to see that bravery in facing, like, just those scary moments, scary spaces. Like, I don't know most of these people who are coming to Vibe with.
Yeah.
And I'm stretching myself, reaching all the different edges of my musicality at Vibe with, and at other shows. The show on Sunday, like, that's just something that I'm trying to convey. Every time is like, it's never gonna be the same every time. Like, this, whatever happens here is for this
forever.
Space. This is my offering to the space. And prompting others to do the same.
Yeah.
And it feeding the space.
Sure. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I love it. Thank you, bro. I'm incredibly excited to see the way the vibe with grows and the way that you grow and continue to do your thing. But yeah, this was super fun, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for an amazing interview.
Of course, man. I appreciate it. BASI's playing live at from Sac to the Skyline, June 7th. Tell them where they can follow you and where they can find the show and get tickets and listen to your music and all that stuff.
Yes, sir. We're going to play a beautiful show on Sunday. You can follow me at BASI Vibe, BASIVIBE on Instagram is really the only thing that I use.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to use anything else.
I feel that.
Yeah, at BASI Vibe, and we'll see you at the show on Sunday.
Pull up on Sunday. Thanks a lot, bro. That was awesome.
Of course, bro.
Appreciate you, man. Music matters.